In the CourtSpot studio, we build narrative experiences for voice and chat platforms. What this means, not a lot of people know yet. Maybe you haven't had a ton of experience talking to any of these. So today I'm going to do a really high-level overview. I'm going to talk about what bots are, how we think about them, why you would ever consider building one yourself or putting one in your newsroom, and then the how. These are really just, again, high-level things that we have learned so far, what we've implemented at Courts. And if you're interested in going more in depth on this, I'm doing a 2-hour workshop this afternoon and would be happy to go much, much deeper. So first is the what. So we think of bots, I think, in 4 different categories. The first is push. These are bots that exclusively spit out messages. So this example is from 5/38, eve of the election. They had a forecast bot that sent out updates anytime the forecast changed. You couldn't really interact with it. It updated the website and their Twitter. Pull bots are doing the opposite of that. They're designed to pull information from an audience. And so we've seen some really interesting work from ProPublica in this space, largely using the bots to ask questions, pull answers, and feed those back into their reporting. Call and response, this is where we start to get a little more complicated. This is kind of the open world of bots, I would say. You can ask a question and have it answered, but there's really not much more to the interaction than that. And then finally, we have sustained dialogue bots. These are chat bots, and this is our sweet spot. This is where we spend most of our time. But I would say that our bots are really different from others that you might encounter. In academia, we call these content delivery systems, automated content delivery systems. I disagree with this. I think that chatbots really are a way to create deep and lasting relationships with an audience, to increase engagement, and really to connect with individuals who make up your audience. Yes, we are doing lots of storytelling. We are writing and reporting actively for these spaces, but what we're seeing in the numbers for engagement and retention, they're really so much higher than on any of our other platforms. And so we're really encouraged by what we're able to do. So the why. Why would you do any of this? One-to-one is a really, really different experience in a couple of different ways. So if you think about social media, you're operating in a one-to-many space, right? You're crafting a single message for Twitter that goes out to all of your followers. You're writing a one-size-fits-all article for your website and pushing that out to everyone. One-to-one allows you to do really deep customization, personalization, and tailoring of the content to individual people. And that is a very, very different game. And so when we are writing things, and really the bot in its entirety, it's not the same for any 2 users. It's defined by the way that they go through the bot. Even inside the stories, there's a lot of nuanced branching, and I'll talk about the how a little later. The other thing that makes one-to-one really different is that it is a private, personal, intimate space. We know this from conducting many, many interviews with all of our readers. They really view it as a private channel between the reader and Courts. And that is, again, very, very different, because the same sense of anonymity that allows people to be assholes online allows people to be vulnerable online. That's the glass half full version, right? Is that people will type things into search that they wouldn't ask otherwise. It's a safe space for many people. And so they will ask questions in this chat. They will type things in the chat. They will take risks in the chat that they wouldn't necessarily do otherwise in a more public or social space. And so we think that this is a really, really great opportunity to do really deep explainers, to provide in-depth coverage, to provide a little more nuance that's, again, tailored to these individual people. And that's how we arrived on this we build relationships idea. We don't think about it as telling a single story. We think about building a relationship with those readers over time. So we're doing a little bit of all that you saw in those 4 areas. We're answering questions, we are pulling information, we're engaging, we're asking readers to give us feedback or tell us about their experience or help us with reporting. We're doing all of this, but we're also doing storytelling, and we're thinking more about the long game than we are the individual pieces of content. The other reason is that it's working, unlike this pointer. Okay, so it's working. We're really encouraged by the numbers that we're seeing. We're seeing 7 times the industry average for weekly retention. This is a conspicuously absent number. We launched our flagship bot experience in March, and we're seeing very high completion rates. What that means, very high, is that for many of the bots that we're building, we're seeing 90% and above completion. So what we mean by completion, why we care about this metric, is that once someone starts to engage with the bot, they go through the full 3 to 5 minute experience 90% of the time. And we think that's incredibly encouraging for showing that our work is working. The other thing that they're doing, we talk about risk-taking. They're giving back, they're participating. This is a 20-hour user journey that we built around baking a loaf of bread. We wanted to experiment with doing something in real time, to take a service piece that you might print in a magazine, try it in a sort of real-time coach experience. So the bot says, okay, leave your dough on the counter, we'll be back in 30 minutes. The bot then pings you in 30 minutes and says, hey, does your dough look like this? And if you say yes or no, we either talk to you about yeast, and maybe you have problems with your yeast, or maybe we give you the green light to go on to the next step. Again, 20 hours from start to finish for this user journey, and people do it. They actually bake bread with a bot, which is, I'm super excited that anyone would do this. It was a crazy experiment that we did. People do it, and they actually send us pictures of their bread. And when we talked to users about this afterward, they described it as having a pocket chef or a personal coach. And we thought this was a really strong indication of engagement. And finally, one thing that we measure is whether or not people are coming back to us when we're not reaching out. We think that this is one of the strongest measures of user engagement and interest, is that somewhere someone has thought about us, has thought about the bot, and has come back to see if there's anything new, anything more to explore. So we measure number of times people come back to the bot without a push notification. So the how. What have we learned in our year and a half at the Bot Studio? A few high level. Everything we do is user-centered to the individual. I talked a little bit about that. We conduct many user interviews. We talk to our readers all of the time. I get on video chat with them and talk to them about their experiences, because we're really trying to make it great, not in aggregate, but for each person. We want to understand how people use the bot differently and build that into the bot so it can respond and focus on each individual. We also really think about shared moments. One of the things that came out of a lot of our user interviews was that they really viewed this as a friend or a coach or a guide. Those are the words that they were using. And so we really wanted to create these shared moments between the bot and the user. So sometimes this is building excitement about something to come and then covering that live event together, being at the live event. And sometimes we have done some strange things like give individual users pieces of a puzzle. This forces people out of the one-to-one experience into that separate larger community. So we gave people different pieces of a puzzle. They had to go elsewhere, find other people who were doing this bot experience, doing the puzzle, solve the puzzle together, and then come back to the bot with the result to go on to the next step. It took them about 3 days, by the way, to solve the puzzle. We also are really interested in involving people in the story. We do a lot of role play, you are so-and-so, you have just arrived at X, we want you to walk through this experience. And we also ask a lot of questions and get people to talk about their own experiences that we can then work into some of the pieces that we're producing for the bot and then send them back out. By the way, I should mention that we do not use this at all to push to any other platform. Everything that we do on the bot is completely bespoke for the bot. So we're writing and editing pieces that we produce here, and they don't live anywhere else, and we never push to our website. Again, that vulnerability that people bring to the chat is really lovely, and what we found is that you can be really strange and do strange things with them to a certain extent, and then the wall is really that it can't get in the way of clarity. We have 7 different onboarding experiences. You get thrown one at random. They're all very strange. I kind of love them. And people are game. People will follow you strange places. So I would say don't be afraid to take risks in this space. People are really interested in having these new experiences. Respect users' time. This is one of the key tenets. We have users living in every time zone across the globe. Just 38% of our users are inside the US. So we have a very global audience. And so one thing that we've worked really hard at is this idea of smart push. Our mantra is no broadcasts, so we never ever send a notification to everyone all at once. So what we're trying to do is get smarter, not in a creepy way. We don't know where you are or what you're doing. We don't have access to that kind of data. But on our back end, what we're doing is saying, okay, this user seems to be more active on Wednesday nights, so let's try a notification on a Wednesday night. See if, we want to find you when you are primed and ready to read the news and not bombard you. We have no interest in being a part of the battleground that is your home screen. So we're trying to increase our intelligence on the back end to create a system that pushes smartly when people are primed and ready to read the news, and at times that are appropriate for each one of those time zones. The other thing that I love to talk about, and I would love to talk more about it this afternoon, is this idea of emotional intelligence. We work very hard to build emotional intelligence with our artificial intelligence. We have found that by introducing really simple branching that acknowledges the user's feelings, asking the user for their reaction to a particular headline, to a particular concept, and then working those reactions into the way that the story unfolds greatly increases our completion rate. So the more that we understand the user, where they're coming from, their stance on an issue, how they're feeling about a particular subject, and can incorporate that into our stories, we see those retention rates go up, engagement, everything else up, up, up. AI is very hard. It's very hard to do well. Chat is very hard to do well. And we use natural language processing. We work through Dialogflow. I'm going to talk about our tech stack, and you can actually build a bot later. I'm like a plug for my own workshop up here. But there are limits, right? There are limits into what NLP can currently do. There are limits to what you can produce as a newsroom to have ready for what people ask. And so understanding where the limits are and building those expectations into the experience is very, very important. In this particular case, we try to do a lot of sort of ambiguous writing. We have a whole set of what we call ambiguous emoji, which are emoji that we think are open to a number of interpretations. And sometimes if you say something to the bot and we don't understand what you said on the back end, and it comes back from Dialogflow as a non-matched intent, we just throw one of we randomly throw an ambiguous emoji from our set, and most of the time, people interpret it within the context of what it says. So I think it's a bit of smoke and mirrors, and then it's a bit of building into your experience 5 minutes, smart ways to establish expectations for your readers. And then finally, this is my final point, rigorously test your gut. Amanda talked about looking at the logs. That is absolutely something that we do and we highly recommend you do. It's a great way to watch people interacting in real time with your work, understanding that crowd a bit better. And then the other thing that we do, we have a data-driven editorial process. So we're constantly A/B testing, we're constantly looking at different story forms and using data to help us make editorial decisions on everything from what we should be writing about to how we should be writing about it, so that we are continuing, again, to the numbers that we care about are those engagement numbers. We're pushing really hard on that, the engagement and retention. That's where we want to be better. And so building in these questions into our code so that we have data that's not just about the number of people talking with us and how long, but data that's actually designed to test editorial principles and thoughts is a huge part of our process. Thank you.